With a win rate of around 54% at the time of recording, Stormlance Task Force is one of the Space Wolves' highest performing detachments from a competitive standpoint. It also happens to be a favourite of mine for casual play because it's a lot of fun and the army rule is easy to apply impactfully. Let's take a look at this detachment and how we might pull together both a competitive and casual list for 1000 point incursion games of 40k. Welcome to my mini Grimdark. A bit of a breakdown for the detachment and why Space Wolves enjoy it so much first of all. Starting with the army rule, it's really easy to access and use for almost every Space Wolves unit. Simply, all of your Adeptus Astartes units are eligible to declare a charge in a turn that they've fallen back or advanced. Bloodclaws already get advanced and charged through the datasheet ability, but most of the Space Wolves units want to be in melee and benefit from this rule as a result. And then that's it, nothing you need to do to activate this. On top of this, you've got a few stratagems that Space Wolves could utilise to good effect as well. Taking Thunderwolf Cavalry in your army would give you access to full throttle for 2 CP to give them a whopping 9-inch advance, which you'll then be able to charge an enemy on the back of. Basically, you'll be able to move them 21 inches and then charge in a turn. That's a big threat range. You've got a nice reactive move that gives an infantry or mounted unit the ability to move 6 inches if an enemy comes within 9 inches of you and keeps your unit from being charged, or to reposition to move block, charge lanes potentially. Blitzing Fusillade isn't obviously beneficial to Space Wolves since you're likely to have fewer ranged support units available, but popping the assault trait onto a Dreadnought for those big guns could allow them to get forward and into the fray or reposition to pick an unsuspecting foe off and shoot for a CP. Ride Hard, Ride Fast buffs your Thunderwolf Cavalry for -1 to hit and -1 to be wounded against an opposition's shooting attack for some extra survivability. Also, another one for Thunderwolf Cavalry, Shock Assault for CP gives the unit your Lance trait. So you'll get +1 damage to the Wolf Guard's melee weapons from their native ability Thunderous Charge, along with +1 to wound from the Lance ability when you're on the charge. That's some serious output. If you regularly take Thunderwolf Cavalry, this detachment could lend to your army being very competitive. I don't actually run Thunderwolf Cavalry since I struggle with the aesthetic of their old sculpts right now, but I still run this detachment in casual games because it's really easy to play and just generally fun for Space Wolves. With all of this in mind, let's start with some more optimised lists for playing a competitive incursion game, imagining that we have the entire range of units to choose from. We've only got 1000 points though, so we can't take all our favourite toys. At 1000 points you probably are deciding between Bjorn the Fell-Handed and Logan Grimnar for your army warlord a lot of the time for a more optimised list. Rather than both, most of the time. Both are excellent units, but you'd be tying a lot of points into 2 models if you took both, so you're going to be leaning towards quite an elite army if this is the case. This might be what you're aiming for, but I want a warlord that can bring some damage output and bring some utility that could be useful to the army, but still conserve more points for damage dealing units that can advance and charge and take control of the tabletop. For me, whilst I enjoy Logan's ability to bring units in from reserves early, if I'm running Aryak and some Terminators in this list as well in particular, I don't actually intend to bring any Terminators for this particular list. I also generally like Bjorn at this points threshold since he gives my army range support as well as some CP generation utility. I'm going to be looking to fully utilise the detachment with Thunderwolf Cavalry, so I'm likely going to be spending CP on stratagems during the game, so Bjorn just makes further sense. After that, still thinking utility, I'm going to benefit from somebody that can whip around scoring secondaries and taking objectives behind my line of rampaging wolves, and there is a character that is particularly well suited to this role. The ever popular lieutenant with combi weapon is perfect for this since they're tricky to take out with their lone operative stealth and reactive move abilities, even though they probably won't do any real damage themselves. He's just here to score points, period. Historically, he's always done this very well. So, do we get to take those Thunderwolf Cavalry units now? Not quite. I want one more utility piece first. The thing is, my Thunderwolf Cavalry is going to be maximally beneficial if I can get them forward fast, so I'd benefit from a unit that's already forward, even before the first turn, slowing up the enemy or creating lanes that my cavalry can move into by move blocking or drawing attention. For an infiltrating unit, I changed my mind a few times between infiltrators, standard Astartes scouts, and wolf scouts. In the end, I decided not the infiltrator since I've got Bjorn in the backfield. Their anti-reserves bubble felt less urgent, and I've always found the other 2 units more impactful further up the table. The standard Astartes scouts are probably the most sensible choice because of the cost saving if I want them to be a purely utility unit with their guerrilla tactics. But having played the wolf scouts a few times, I'm finding their extra damage output from all of those plasma weapons is impactful. I can be aggressive with them during deployment and infiltrate forward as much as I dare. Then, if the enemy gets first hit, I can scout move them to safety and still utilise the wind swift evasion stratagem to further keep them away from charge range if necessary too. In theory, if a target presents itself, I can give them assault with blitzing and fusillade, allowing them to move, advance, shoot their plasma weapons, and then, due to the detachment rule, they can still charge their opponent as well. That's some pretty good offensive output for an infiltrating unit that'll also have some support from the cavalry units. So this is where I landed, but I do acknowledge the arguments for the alternative options here as well. Regardless of your choices, you've got a warlord range support and CP utility unit in Bjorn. You've got a mischievous combi LT for scoring secondaries. Then we've got an infiltrating unit to slow down the opposition that's capable of putting out damage themselves. Okay, let's bring on the wolves then. I decided to go with 2 units of Thunderwolf Cavalry. Storm Shields and Wolfguard weapons all around for me, no messing around with ranged weapons here. They've really good output for a small unit, but I decided they're likely going to be a fast attack unit that's probably going to die on the clapback, regardless of whether I take them in 3 or 6. And the unit of 6 is a big investment for that kind of unit at 1000 points. 3 can do ample damage on the charge, especially if I buff the unit with the lance trait. These 2 units won't be my only wolf units though. I'm also taking 2 units of head takers with storm shields, and each unit's going to have a small pack of hunting wolves. The hunting wolves are cheap screen units that'll get forward as quickly as possible with the sole purpose of move blocking and wasting the opposition time. They have big bases and move fast, so your opponent will have to deal with them whether they like it or not, and it'll help reinforce your Wolf Scouts' position, as well as creating opportunities for you to countercharge with your Thunderwolf Cavalry. I strongly recommend having the end scenes of Old Yeller or Marley and Me ready on your phone, and if the opponent decides to shoot them, just play your phone in front of them from the other side of the table. There aren't any rules against psychological warfare in Warhammer 40,000, right? The head takers, by the way, love this detachment. The Storm Shields give them better survivability than without, so in the absence of Terminators, they do give you a unit that can get onto objectives that are surprisingly efficient at clearing the opposition units off once you've engaged them with advance and charge, and will then gain you victory points. They're nowhere near as durable as the Wolfguard Terminators though, don't be fooled. If your frontal assault fails, this second line will only be able to take so much. To help them out and to round off the list, a unit of Bloodclaws with a battle leader. Aside from being really efficient at killing light infantry, this gives you bodies on the table to get ahead of your head takers and follow up from your fast attack units to support your scouts. Maybe even skirt off to take an objective from an opposition fast attack unit themselves. The battle leader unit is a personal choice, but I tend to go with a Thunderhammer, sort of a I'd rather have it and not need it kind of approach, but the master-crafted power weapon is really good for Bloodclaws to just add further weight to their attacks. It's a sustain hits 1 and rerolls of 1 to hit for the unit that you're taking him for anyway. This army's really glass cannon, no doubt. It's fast, even though there's a lack of transport here, and you've got great board coverage with big bases and decent number of infantry units, considering the fact that this is only a 1000 point army. I toyed with dropping in a Wolfguard Terminator unit. You could. You'd need to switch out the scouts for standard Astartes scouts and drop the Bloodclaws and Battle Leader or something similar. I did this at one point and laid the models out to give me a sense of what I had. Honestly, I wasn't happy losing the model count or the Wolf Scouts as output at this points level. You could switch out the 2 Head Takers units, but to be honest, I've always found they do a solid job, and sometimes, particularly at 1000 point games, having 2 small units is going to be more impactful than 1 tougher one. The Hunting Wolves are genuinely going to play an important role here, and some opponents are going to find their little elite forces constrained by successive waves of chaff between the Hunting Wolves, Cavalry, and finally the Bloodclaws. This should give you time to get ahead on the scoring. I'll come onto the casual list now, but drop into the comments and let me know your thoughts. What would you switch up from this detachment to make it more competitive from your perspective? Okay, here's my casual list though. Throwing optimization right out of the window. I'd play Stormlance because I want to have a good time. Maybe a cheeky glass or 3 of nice scotch. Some pretzels and catch up with a childhood friend over Warhammer, without having to worry about remembering rules and tactical buffs. So, what units do I know that like advance and charge and are just fun on the table, regardless of their optimization? Enter the most overpriced but one of the funnest unit combinations in the Space Wolves Codex, Njal Stormcaller leading a unit of Grey Hunters. If I'm lucky, by the time you're watching this, Njal and the Grey Hunters have already been reduced in points in the latest data slate. This probably won't be enough to get them onto the competitive tables, I imagine, which is seriously unfortunate because this unit is a fun menace in Stormlands. The Grey Hunters by themselves are a little stronger in melee than the Bloodclaws because they'll get rerolls of wounds. It'll be 1s as standard, but full rerolls to wound rolls if the opponent's on an objective. They have bolt carbines, which, if we're being honest, is the Space Marine BB gun, I'm afraid. It's not great. They do, however, get a large number of shots at closer range if you activate rapid fire, and this ups their usefulness. Now consider this. Njal leading them gives the unit an automatic 6-inch advance. Njal leading them also gives the ranged weapons the assault trait, so the unit can advance this 6 inches and still shoot. And the detachment gives them advance and charge, so they can advance this 6 inches and still shoot and still charge. You see where this is going, right? This unit can move, just move 13 inches to get them into charge range. It can then offload up to 30 shots from their bolt carbines to hopefully pull down a couple of models, and then, without spending any CP, you can charge the enemy and take them on with 40 melee attacks with rerolls on the wound rolls, either ones or full rerolls. You'll also have OC3 per model incidentally. Even after they've fought back, there are a few other battle line units in 40k that'll still have ownership of an objective after all of that. This is genuinely great, hands down impactful, and really a lot of fun too. But at 265 points, it's just too much currently. Still, for a casual, relaxing, the brain cells kind of game, really fun unit combination. After that, I enjoy wolfing with storm shields and they adore advance and charge. 10 would be nice, but it's a little oppressive for a casual game, so a unit of 5 will be good. They'll cover ground fast. After that, I like a nice block of head takers. I'm torn between paired weapons for blender output or shields for a bit more survivability. In the end, I landed on the shields and the wolf priest. It's a great output, but okay durability too. And then I went with Ayak and a 5-strong unit of Terminators. They'll deep strike in, maybe rapid ingress if I remember too, but either way, they'll just advance and charge with the army rule and lumber around, hitting things until the final buzzer without being massively oppressive. Finally, again, a wolf scouts unit. Sneaky unit with some utility, but a genuinely useful and fun damage output. You've got 15 points left by today's standards, so you could drop Portents of Wisdom on the Wolf Priest for rerolls on the Head Taker's advance rolls. That's genuinely useful, but I'll probably forget I've got it, to be honest. That said, assuming that GW will have recognised that no one is playing Grey Hunters and Njal at the time of this video, and reduced their cost enough for you instead to use the 15 points above and the points saved for the Grey Hunters and Njal after their buff to pop some Hunting Wolves onto your Head Taker's unit or a unit of Fenrisian Wolves if you're not quite there. I'm sure GW have noticed, right? Anyway, there you have it, a competitive and casual gaming list for Space Wolves for Stormlance Task Force. Who would you trade out and for what, and why is it Grey Hunters? Thanks for watching, keep hobbying.